to go. Gotcha. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mauck Talk. Yeah, it's been about 12 years, but we're back. Yeah, we're back. So the show looks a little different than it did 12 years ago when we did it the last time. Joining me tonight is my beautiful, smart wife, Dawn Mauck. Dawn, hello.
Hello.
Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
All right. And joining the show, you remember him from the last Mauck Talk we did, Travis.
Woo!
Travis, how's it been? 12.
It's been a good decade.
It's been a good. Your kid is like.
She's 14.
Yeah, she was like a baby back when we did the first Mauck Talk.
Not even.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, she was just she's barely. She wasn't talking yet.
Yeah.
Talking yet,
Wow.
so I'm glad to be here.
Do you miss those days when your child wasn't talking?
No, in fact, I had. I think about this all the time, but right after Gracie, my daughter, was born, one of my work colleagues at the time said, "So, I mean, this is like weeks after she was born.
Yeah.
So no one's sleeping in our house. No one's right." One of my work colleagues says, "So when's number 2 coming?" And I said, "Man, it's not even in consideration." I said, "I haven't slept in 3 weeks, nor has my wife." And he said something. He said, "Well, Mother Nature has a way of making you forget that stuff." And that's how you end up with 2, 3. But whatever happened with my wife and I, Mother Nature
Never forgot. I like that.
Never pulled that memory tool from the from the movies. It never pulled it on us.
There you go.
So yeah, it's they grow up so fast that, like, I was thinking about this on the way over here. My daughter's gonna start driving. I'm gonna start needing to teach her
Wow.
mechanics and driving, and I'm excited about that. My wife is absolutely depressed about it because that's just 1 year closer to her,
Yeah.
college and her leaving, and I get that part of it. I'm excited because she just gets more and more independent,
Yeah.
and I like that for her.
We have my stepson and Don's son. He's going away to Texas A&M this week, and so we are very excited. At least I am. I'm going to be in trouble. I am not excited. Rob, bail me out. So Rob joining us tonight.
Listen, I very much forgot about the sleepless nights. Alcohol may have been involved as a result of me forgetting. So I'm on number. I have 2. No more. I talked to my doctor after the second one. So I have 2. But I'm kind of like you, and I think a lot of guys will probably be in that lane that are. From day one of having a child, we're like progressing. It's all about, we're always thinking 30 years ahead of the work anyway.
Yeah.
So to see that matriculate and start to happen is kind of exciting for us. Though when the pictures come around, I'm like, oh, I miss my fat little baby.
Yep.
Right. But I also have no interest in revisiting that experience whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, Don and I got married a couple of years ago. We met 3 years ago in California, both from Dallas. And I never had kids. And so Mason, I think I've known him since he was 15 or 16. So I missed out on any, I've never, 48, I've still never changed a diaper. And, unless the zombie apocalypse happens and people need help, I don't know that I'll break that streak. So
No,
it's
anytime the dog vomits, he's like, Dawn, out.
Yeah,
So he can't do the yucky stuff.
Your sleepless nights are different, right? What you stay up about for the 15, 16-year-old is different than being forced to stay up, right? So you're still getting those sleepless nights and worries and concerns. You're just thinking about different things like driving, for example, or where he is or shouldn't be. Or,
Why are they not home?
Yeah, why are they not home?
Yeah,
I totally agree.
As you send them off to college, it's kind of like
sketchy friends.
Yeah.
Do they have, well, it's gonna round around, but, I'll speak for Mason. I've never, all his friends don't seem sketchy, which statistically some are. So I'm kind of like, which friends are the sketchy ones?
Yeah.
So,
I'm more concerned about sketchy parents right now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
sketchy
because
parents.
I'm dealing
Tell
with,
us about sketchy parents. Right
yeah,
now.
I'm dealing with 10 and 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And 8-year-olds, and they haven't necessarily disassociated from their parents' ideas and the way they live. So I'm more concerned about the sketchy parent who is influencing the children in my age range.
Do you, so the three of your parents, do you, we hear this, that when I was a kid, and we're about the same age, when I was a kid, we would go out and ride our bikes until 10 o'clock at night and till the lights went out, and the world seemed safe. Do you think the world is, because you have kids and I don't, but do you think the world was safer when we were kids, or is it just there was more media? We didn't have a 24-hour news network when we were kids.
Mhm.
You had to watch the big three news, or do you think just the world is more evil?
So I think we have much more awareness of what's been going on. I don't think, actually, it depends on how you look at it, right? Statistics would say it's a safer world for children because less things are happening to children.
So I think it goes back to being involved parents.
Yeah.
Like all the parents are all up in their kids'
And a lot of these kids are exceptionally raised by helicopter hovering parents, right? So it's kind of hard for your kid to fall out of a tree when you won't let them go up the tree, right? But
They shouldn't go up the tree.
No, they got to go up the tree. They need to go up the tree, and I think part of the problem with some of the kids is because they don't have that you've been on your bike 15 miles away from the house, and your parents had no clue.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that autonomy, that experience, maybe even that danger, which helped mold us, that doesn't happen until like they're in their 20s, but it's around other more dangerous things. So the fallout is even worse. Right. So where you might have fell out of a tree, they're falling out of a car because they're drunk driving.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think it's any more dangerous. I think it's like everything else. We are inundated with always on news, always on content. And there's never a time that these kids get to be bored.
Yeah. It puts you on guard. Because, and I'm guilty as anyone of this, of seeing, being exposed to so much media. You do have so much information coming at you, and I'm extremely guilty of probably maybe overreacting in a way. But I remember a couple of years ago there was a story out of just right here out of Dallas about a young blonde girl that had been taken right like out of a Mavs game.
Oh,
Just a 16-year-old girl.
I remember that story. Yeah.
And
Well, it was a real story, wasn't it?
It actually happened.
And it was not. She didn't go away with. I don't remember the. She didn't go away with her friends, right? She really was taken.
She was taken. She
God.
bumped into a really kind of a handsome young guy that was like, hey, she was 15. Both of her parents were there at the game. She went to the bathroom.
At a Mavs game.
At a Mavs game. And this guy says, man, I've got this cool sports car out here. Do you want to see it?
Oy.
Now, she was like a statistical miracle because they got her.
They did recover her.
They got her quickly.
Yeah.
And the parents got her back. So, but when you hear a story like that,
It's crazy.
my gut instinct is to, chain my daughter to the house.
Right. Yeah.
Because, and so I agree with really everything Rob just said. What I think that can be more treacherous now is the threats that we're against seem more.
Yeah.
I read somewhere the other day how quickly they can have these. If a young girl's kidnapped, God forbid, how quickly they can have them out of the country.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
It's within 24 hours, and then your chances of ever seeing
Slim.
Yeah.
So, but
The world is maybe it is. I don't remember as kids ever hearing about a professional sports game, people getting kidnapped.
Well, I don't
No, I
ever
don't
remember hearing anybody
But
who was
there's-
being kidnapped. Just
But you were also only listening to 3 channels.
It's true. Maybe it happened and
Right?
we
It was
didn't know.
ABC, NBC, PBS, right? So you didn't necessarily know what was going on
That's
because you didn't
true.
have a constant feed of
That's
Twitter
true.
information telling you this just happened 4 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I don't, and again, statistically, it's less of that is happening. Like there's less abductions, there's less people being taken away, and we have more success because these kids are walking around with devices in their pocket that we can always find out where they're at.
So that was my next question.
Yeah, he
Do
was gonna
you?
ask the-
I know what your answer is, but do you both, find my location? Do you have that always turned? Do you
For
have
my children?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have geofencing where if they go out of a certain area, you can?
My kids can't get anywhere yet. So like I'm the Uber driver. So
But if you take your kids to the movies or do you go to the movies with them?
I go to the movies with them.
Okay.
Or they don't go to the
They
movies.
don't go
Like
to the
it's just a uniquely
But your
different
kids
world.
are young. Your kids are still younger.
Well, I remember walking from I used to play basketball all the time. And I used to remember walking to Woe Recreation Center in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
It was probably about a mile, maybe a mile and a half away from my house. I had $2 in my pocket because I was going to get some White Castles on the return trip, right? And that was sufficient. I remember making that walk, and there was my parents didn't have an ability to call up to the rec center and find out if it was there or not, right? So I don't necessarily feel like these kids live that way.
Right.
Like my kids got outside their neighborhood, they would be lost. They would be lost. They don't have the clue how to get back. Unless they, of course, they GPS through their phone.
Right.
But me, I was like on the bus, Metrolink was just like the Dart here in Dallas. I was moving around. So it's just a different world. These kids are connected more. Like they have friends in Japan, right?
Yeah.
But they are so disconnected. I'll give you a story about my son. My son's a basketball player, and I grew up playing basketball on asphalt and in Recreation Center.
Yeah.
And we used to gather. I had to literally build a business in order to recreate that. Because kids between 9 and 13-year-olds only play sports in very organized ways. It's always a team or being trained by. It's never just there was 9 kids on the block. Let's go play basketball, right?
Oh, that doesn't happen anymore?
Oh, no, they do not
wow.
gather like that at all. There is
Travis,
no
that
gathering.
was our childhood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hey, calling the home phone. Is Travis there? Hey, we're playing basketball.
Yeah.
And we were too. Yeah, Travis and I grew up in very bad poverty. We couldn't afford, if they even had organized sports, our parents would have never paid to put us. So all we know is that playing basketball on the asphalt or throwing up a makeshift goal somewhere and playing on grass.
My son tried out for a team. He's an avid 5th grader. Hopefully he's headed to the league because I don't want to work after the next decade. But $2,500 was for the half year.
Oh.
$2,500 did not include uniforms.
Right.
Uniforms was an extra charge.
How could uniforms be? Well, so what happens if you have to buy the uniform?
Yes.
You got to buy a uniform.
So it's really not $2,500.
It's
probably
$28.
$3,000.
Right.
It's 28. And I remember like, man, $35. I used to beg my mom for the $35 fee that came with the jersey. So sports in that way for children has become a very exclusive kind of community. And it's literally ostracized a whole generation of kids.
Yeah, Travis and I, we remember all the gyms. We would somehow figure out how to get access. That was the other thing. You could, like church gyms when we were growing up, if a church had a basketball court, that was the big thing in the 80s and the 90s was, build a separate building that just has basketball for the youth.
Yeah.
You could call the church or you could go to a recreational center. And if no one was using it, you could pay a small fee. You probably can't even do that stuff anymore.
Oh,
now,
it's just
if you call the
Thursdays.
church, they'd be like, what?
Hopewell Baptist Church on, let me try to get this right. Hopewell Baptist Church is on Taylor Street in St. Louis. Every Thursday, we would walk from my house, which is maybe a mile and a half away, walk up there with my buddies, play basketball for 2 hours, free of charge, right? That experience doesn't exist. And largely because 1 or 2 lawsuits.
Yeah.
And the church says we can't afford to have you in here unless it's a structured thing.
Yeah, we definitely our world's changed, but Yeah. Again, Mauck Talk tonight, back after 12 or 13 years off. And one thing I asked, we talked a little bit about it. We'll skip an item on the agenda. But, we talked about, as a kid, church being such even if you didn't attend church, you still had a community, a church probably in your neighborhood that you did things at, whether it was the gym or they would have some, fair or festival type thing that they did. But you're seeing all the articles that you see now about faith and people's faith, no matter what religion it is. Most of the articles I read are of the Christian faith, but I would venture to guess it goes beyond that. It's all faiths are seeing big reductions in church attendance, big reductions financially. And Don, we'll start with you. What do you think is leading to that?
You're not gonna like my answers. So you said like two things, and so I of course had to take notes. I said I think because country's divided, like there's so much difference of opinion, but you're not like allowed to agree to disagree. It's like everybody wants to fight about who is right, and I don't know that that's really like living the message. I don't know. And then my second point was like knowledge is power, right? That's what we grew up with, like knowledge is power. But that also can create confusion. So like the more you know, remember that little like star, the more you know.
That's NBC thing.
Yeah. So the more you know, it just seems like, once again, being inundated with information, being inundated with all these theories or beliefs or whatever, it can be confusing for people to like decide what they want to believe in, because and to like kind of stray from your roots too, I think, because and then you start criticizing the way you were raised. Oh well, my parents had their blinders on and we were raised a certain way and that was way too strict. There's a whole world of things out there. And so people want to go and experiment and experience different things. I think that has led maybe a little bit to it. People are just exploring different ideas.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you said. I think for me, I'll go next. So I was a pastor in my early 20s, started a church in New York, still actually exists, and a lot different. I don't, maybe some of the originals were there, but when I was 24, started that church. And faith was a big part of my life. And then I kind of stopped going, probably about 30. And I didn't go for, I don't know, 10 years. And when I started going again, I started going to Gateway Church in South Lake when I lived here before. That could be a whole show, by the way. But one thing I noticed just in the 10 years, you go to church, the pastor's like, and I'm going to sound like an old man, but I don't care. It's my show. The pastor's like, scripture today, whatever, John 3:16. And nobody has a Bible. Everybody goes to their phone. Well, I brought the Bible, Rob, because, my grandfather would come down, take care of that if he, anyway. And then everybody's playing on their phone at church.
Especially
Now,
taking notes, yeah.
we didn't have this issue when we were kids. You didn't have internet. You didn't have smartphone. But some of the small churches that I attended, if that pastor was pastoring one of these churches today, I don't know. The pastor would probably be arrested because it would not be good. But everyone seemed disengaged. And the other thing is, when I went back to church, I was really attracted to mega churches because you can kind of hide. And you just want to hide. Nobody knows you're there. But I'm seeing these mega churches where, in Gateway, and Robert Morris, it's well documented what happened to him. There's no breaking news you're going to hear tonight. And he resigned, and he should have resigned. It was disgusting what he had hid all those years. And I was a little in shock. But I think all of these mega churches really, and the small churches too. And so for me, I'll say, and then I'll turn it over one of you, is when you put everything, it's like a kingdom. And everything is all around that king. That king writes a book, or that queen writes books. And what they say goes. What they say is the gospel. And then when that king or queen commits some terrible offense, like a Robert Morris, you can't take it anymore. And I know small churches are like that, but I think churches that kind of survive are the ones where it's not really whoever the leader is, it's not their kingdom, it's God's kingdom, and they're the
Bible.
Right. But I think that has led, and it's just led to distrust. I mean, when we were kids, we had the Jimmy Swaggart scandals and some of those things, which seem so tame now compared to some of the trash that's out there. But I think people are so cynical about their faith. And again, I'm only speaking about the Christian faith. Consider myself a Christian, better some days than others. But I would guess this is happening through all faiths, Jewish faith or other faiths. I would guess they're having the same type of issues. I'll skip over. Travis, we'll come to you last. Rob, what do you think is going on with faith and why people are running from their faith? I don't see a lot of people running too.
My experience with faith has been rather all over the place. I'm probably more closer than agnostic than today that I have ever been. And I'm someone who has literally Luke 9:24 tattooed on my forearm. I think it kind of goes back to the awareness thing that we talked about, right? We didn't know what was going on because people control the amount of information that we were privy to. But I also think I don't know how to necessarily data this out, right? But there's a gap. But we found out that the people who were telling us how to live, the gap between how they were living in their own lives became so much more exposed. And it wasn't in a way that, I am just as human as you are. A lot of those folks sit on big pedestals. And had they been introducing religion to those people in the context of, I am a flawed person giving you this, so please take that in mind, it would have been a whole lot more lasting than it is today. But it was very much, I am living the right way. I am living the right way. I am living the right way. And then now they're all in social media, or they have phones and they don't control access to information and we find out that there's a bigger gap there between that. But I also think that people don't rely on a specific kind of theology to feel connected today, right? It's much more about mutually lived experience. Like Travis and I might differ in religious beliefs, but we're probably 99% aligned in terms of being fathers, right? So that is something that's much more significant in terms of who we are as humans and who we are as people and men that we can align on, right? Yeah. And so the gaps are lesser because as a result of us just saying, hey, no matter what you decide to pray to or who you decide to pray to, was it hard for you not to sleep when that 2-year-old? Right. And so that's a mutually shared experience. So we don't have to root that in our religion anymore.
Yeah. Travis?
I think you were nearly touching on the very answer that I was going to give to this topic. And I was thinking it was profound and nobody's going to get this. And you were just like hovering around it. But
a setup. That's
at the root of
what a good host does.
Yeah, at the root of your question, as I took it, was why are people turning their backs on faith or pulling? And I have a little bit of a chicken and egg situation going on with my answer, and I haven't completely worked this out yet. But to get to the meat of it, I think there's two things at play. Number one, going to what you're talking about, when you and I speak for us, when we were kids, the church, and I mean that as a physical. The brick and mortar was the center of our cultural lives.
Yeah.
Saturday night prayer meeting.
Saturday night.
2 times on Sunday.
All day.
Sunday school and the night service. And then Wednesday you had Bible study. And then Friday night was youth night,
Yeah.
right? And I'm thankful for that. I'm not completely thankful for my entire religious experience as a kid, but I am thankful that I had the church there, and that's where my friends. I mean, you're the oldest friend I have, and that's thanks to the church. So, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist in some communities right now, but by and large, the church used to be for the community. If you didn't have any food, if you were about to be homeless, if you're, you couldn't afford your prescriptions. I mean, the church provided these needs. And if your kids were bored, then they would go to the church and they would play basketball, or you'd have the indoor game night. Or if for Valentine's Day, there would be the celebration, there at the church. I mean, this goes on and on and on. And then so I think removing the church or the synagogue or the temple, whatever you want to call it in your perspective, removing that as the cultural hub,
the meeting place,
has caused a drift between, and I believe, and you guys can laugh me off the bar stool but I believe in large part it's due to a targeted campaign against the nuclear family. I believe that for decades now, there's a big section of our country that has done everything they can to break up the nuclear family. And of course, it's just my opinion, but a mother and a father in the home is the best chance of a stable childhood.
Yeah.
And the dad gearing that family towards church and towards faith is missing in a lot of communities right now. And so my chicken and egg problem is, I don't know if the nuclear family, as it begins to crumble, have we steered away from the church being the foundation of the pillar, or is the church missing cause the nuclear family to start to, that part I haven't worked out yet, but I wholeheartedly believe they tie in. And then the last point I would make is that there's some credibility issues.
Well, I think that's
you've all touched on it.
Yeah.
There's these giant credibility issues. And it's happened to everyone sitting here that you just believe that this person is someone that I can really follow. I can believe in, I can model my life after this person. And then they're splattered all over the nightly news. And that takes chunks out of you.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm a lot like you. I go to a larger church because I don't want to be noticed.
Yeah.
I want to try to feed myself spiritually, but I don't want to be noticed. I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to be an usher right now. I don't want to be greeting people at the door.
Right.
I want to absorb the work. So, and this is the last thing I'll say. And I don't know the stats. I don't know the numbers on it, but I do think that this Gen Z going into Gen Alpha, I think there's a resurgence of faith with these young people.
Is Gen Alpha
It's next.
That's
They're
what
up next.
your kids
2010 to 2000.
I did not know what the
Your
name
kids?
was.
They are alpha. Beta's up next. So
Beta's up
16
next.
or now into probably I think
Maybe.
15 is
Relax.
beta.
What are we, X?
We're X.
Old is what we are.
Yeah, Gen
My
old.
daughter, I purposefully have never pushed my daughter into any, but she, and I'm not exaggerating, she came to me 2 years ago and said, will you buy me a study Bible? And she said, can you take me up to church? She pursued that on her own. And a lot of it was influenced from her friends. And we grow up, we're kind of out in the country, a smaller, farming type community.
Yeah.
So I know there's influence there, but I've never told my daughter, you got to go to church. She's pursued that on her own. And what I've noticed, our front door is like a revolving door for young people.
Yeah.
And I love it. They'll come in and make themselves at home in the
That's cool.
fridge.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
comfortable there. It's a safe place they can come hang out. I pride myself on that. But these kids love God, and it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
They just, there's something organic going on there. And I think it's good. For all my hangups with religion, and I've got a bunch of them, I believe
I think we all have that.
if if you follow that moral code that's laid out in most religions, you'll live a better life.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, you said it's not due to you, but it is the way that you raised her, I think, and kind of feeling her, like her spiritual appetite too, the way you raised her is morally good. And so she's going to be drawn to morally good people.
Right.
And so, yeah, you are, I mean, you look at some other families and it's like, oh, what happened to that kid? And then you meet the parents and they're strung out, or, like they are always the product of.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
I got a praying mom. She kind of let us off at the hook of going to church at about 12, 13. And I stopped going to church, right? Because giving that kind of autonomy to a 13-year-old, I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to church. I'm not going to church. But I did circle back around and got baptized on my own accord when I was about 24. I think I was a grad student in college and made that choice for myself. I think the young people, I think there is some validity to what you're saying. And I see it happening in my 11-year-old especially. And that is that they're seeking out community, right?
Right.
And then when you put forth a set of like standards, those standards of the people that you've introduced your children to have a greater disposition to be of the faith in some way, because you have these morals, these values that you've been trying to impart into them. So I think they are starting to look into the community. I have a lot of my athletes who are the athletes that I train or deal with, who are exceptionally about God, right? And I don't necessarily think it's because they're being forced to be about God. But I also think that young people are looking for community in ways that they haven't been able to explore in a digital world. So you in a digital world, you kind of only have to deal with people as you want to, right? But in our time, you had to deal with a whole person, because you were always around them. You was always spending time. I went to church camps, even though my parents weren't that devout. I still was because my friends went. Like, I'm going too, right?
Yeah.
So I just think the gap is largely because, like we were discussing, there's a lot more information that you get exposed to. The people who were in those positions of power kind of let us down. And didn't let us down in the sense that they didn't need to be perfect. They just put on like they were.
I think that's, and I've been reading. I don't know. I feel like, as my faith. I mean, I'm much closer, I think, in my faith now than I was, let's say 10 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever. But I think that we want that pastor or that leader to be perfect, because they're speaking to us and they're telling us, hey, if you do this, your reward is heaven, or you'll have, blessings and this and that. And they don't have to be perfect, but they have to be better than the man or woman that I'm having a beer with on Friday night. And they have to be a little better than that. And what I mean by that is, if I'm gonna give myself trouble here, if I'm at a bar stool on Friday night and I'm just met someone and we're talking and we get into discussion and he's like, 5 years ago, or she says, 5 years ago,
there's no she.
I'm married, so there's no she. But
you only go to bars where there's only guys. What kind of bar is that?
This family-friendly show, so we'll watch it. But I go, and they're like, about 5 years ago, I got arrested for, bank fraud or wire or credit card fraud or something. At a bar, you're like, oh, what happened? Yeah, I paid a fee. I learned my lesson. Well, I expect my pastor to not do stuff like that. Okay, to not do that Mickey Mouse like kind of theft stuff. Okay, the bar's real low here.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we see these pastors, they're not committing the credit card fraud.
Yeah.
We're seeing pastors that molest young children.
Right.
Like, to me, that is something, not only do I I mean, Rob, I love you, Travis, for years. There are certain things that if any of us were arrested for and proven to be guilty, we probably would.
I'm going to distance myself.
We'd be like, man,
Yeah.
I'm praying for that
much.
guy, but that's
Yeah.
too much.
Right.
But we don't expect that from our pastor. We don't expect perfection, but we expect you not to commit like sins that we don't understand. And I think that's what hurt me so bad with Robert Morris was, he molested a kid, and he had talked for years about an affair he had, and it wasn't an affair.
Yeah.
And I was stunned because, again, that's something I would expect someone in prison. Yeah, I'm doing 25 to life. What'd you do? Well, I did this terrible crime. Oh, okay. I'm not surprised. They're in prison 25 to life.
Yeah.
And if I go to you, Rob, and I'm like, hey, I met John, and did you know he did blah, 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 but he's serving 25 to life, you'd be like, well, Eric, he's in prison. What'd you expect? Okay, I don't expect that from my pastor.
Yeah.
So the bar, I make the thing about credit card fraud. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but you know what I'm saying. If one of our friends wrote a hot check or something and got in trouble, we wouldn't write them off. We'd be like, they made a mistake. It was done, whatever. They're still my friend. But I even expect a little more than that. I expect them to be a moral person, not to be perfect.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing with these mega churches is, even when we were kids, the Jim and Timmy, not only are they evil, they're taking money.
Yeah.
And they're taking people's hard-earned money. Anyway, I could go on a rant for a long time, but I think that has had something to do. If somebody came to me and said, yeah, this pastor, you should have seen the way he was looking at the cheerleaders at the Cowboys game, I'm going to be like,
I saw those cheerleaders too. I was looking. Yeah.
But if you're like, yeah, this pastor, he, he's going to keep pastoring his church, but he's been having an affair with 3 Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders,
Right.
Then it's different.
What's the name of that church?
It's the level
These are terrible analogies. People are watching the show going, well, we know his point. He's trying to.
You're going to get more people in church on Sunday than ever before as a result of this show. Good job.
Well, I don't know any pastors. But you know what? Let me go on a rant here about the mega churches. Because I've lived in 10 different states, and I've been to a lot of mega churches. And it is funny. Our pastor growing up, Travis and I have known each other for 36 years, and we grew up in a very small church. And our pastor was not physically, he was not built. He did not look like a movie star. But now when I go to these mega churches,
they literally have stylists.
Men and women,
They have stylists.
They're built, they're jacked. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, I hope this person is the most qualified, not just the best looking. And that's how they
I'm saying
became
something's
the
wrong
pastor.
with it. I'm saying something's wrong with it. And this is why I think there's something wrong with it. The show is the tool that they use to attract people versus the word.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So once you deviate from the word as a tool to attract people, and the nice outfit or the good social media or the association with another person, like the word used to be what was the show.
Right.
In those kind of churches that you talk about, where the phones weren't available, word was the show. And I think now the show is literally look at how well dressed this pastor is,
Right.
or look at how nice this church is.
And we're not saying if your pastor out there is just natural, but we're just saying most mega churches now, it's
a
like
production.
you have to look like a
I
movie
was gonna
star
say
to
they're
pastor
very
that church.
It's a production.
animated too, yeah.
And that it didn't used to
They're
happen.
celebrities.
Yeah, they're celebrities.
Oh.
They're there you
Tell
go.
them about like when I wanted them to marry us.
No. we went to a mega church out in California, and anyway, Don was like, "Oh, we'll have the mega church pastor perform our wedding." I'm like, "Babe, we couldn't even get a moment of this guy's time."
Right.
And she watched one day. As soon as the sermon is over, he's out the door into
Out
his
the back door.
Lexus sports car before anybody else and driving off.
Yeah.
Because that's just, because we think of.
I just thought he was relatable, and I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what we
And
were talking
we're-
about. Like
we're-
friends can be relatable, but I think
We're stereotyping though. Getting way off track.
They're
A
not
little bit,
relatable
but
anymore.
there is a lot of there's a ton of, this is one thing that I am personally very hung up on. I can't let it go. It drives me crazy. But, and I'm just, will even say that a lot of it has to do with the church that we went to when we were younger.
Yeah.
If you've got a congregation of grocery store cashiers, plumbers, welders,
Yeah.
people
Blue
collar. If you're wearing $3,500 sneakers,
Yeah.
there is a problem with you.
A disconnect.
It blows me away. This shouldn't be shocking to me, but it is shocking to me. The church that we go to, that I take Gracie to, is it's 2,000 people in that church. It's a large church. That pastor lives in a small home on the church
Ground.
Wow.
He and his family drive a small van that the church provides. I've never seen the man that he wasn't wearing like khakis and some Sketcher dress. I mean, he's
looking like somebody's dead.
Yeah, he looks like, and this man lives within the means provided to him by the church. And that goes a long way with me.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because if you've all seen the pictures of the Instagram accounts where the guy is snapping pictures of these pastors from these mega churches wearing $5,000 t-shirts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
it's crazy.
There is nothing godly about that.
And 80% of that congregation is because we are praying about prosperity. 80% of that congregation would be uncomfortable saying, "I need a help with this $140 electric bill," despite the fact that they know their pastor has a plane.
But that's where you should go.
Yeah,
if you can't pay, and this was supposed to be a 10-minute segment. I hope you enjoyed it. But the last thing I'll say about this is, you're right. If you were not able to pay your electric bill, that's where you went.
But you're too embarrassed to do it now.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, and the pastor, if they were, I was an assistant pastor in Rhode Island for this man, and I'm sure future shows will bring up stuff. And I learned a lot of good from him. I learned a lot of interesting. I was an assistant pastor. It was a nice church. Travis knows the man. And I remember this couple called. He was out of town. So he was out of town. I was the assistant to the pastor, was my official title. I was young, 22, and he was older. And they called and said, hey, we need groceries and this and that. And so we had an account at one of the local Kroger type stores. I asked the church secretary, she goes, yeah, for instance, like this, we got an account. Called the Kroger, hey, this is assistant pastor, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, have them come in, $100. Back then, $100.
A lot of groceries.
Yeah, a lot of groceries. Yeah, that's 2 weeks back in the day instead of 2 days. Anyway, the pastor gets back. He goes, hey, I heard you did this. And he goes, did those people attend church? And I said, no. And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that. And I was like, why? And he's like, they didn't come to church. We're never going to see that money back.
What's the ROI?
He's like, we like to save it for our own people. And I'm like, but isn't this what we're supposed to do? And he goes, you're going to win these arguments, Eric.
Yes.
He said, you're going to win the arguments. But anyway, it was just, but I think that's true though. If you went to that mega church pastor and said, I can't, first off, you'd never get past security. But
you never would.
But if, Travis's church sounds like, if you got to the pastor, it sounds like he's the type of guy that'd be like, well, let's get that bill paid this month. What can we do?
I believe he would, and I believe it'd be confidential.
And it should be.
And I believe he'd follow up with you. I mean, that's just how that's the impression I've got from him. There's another church right up the highway where the guy is, he looks like a bodybuilder, and he wears these stark white tennis shoes. And
I was going to say the white shoes,
and he baptizes people with all this jewelry, and he's got tattoos, full sleeves. I mean, this guy's a celebrity.
Yeah.
It is not.
Oh, Don, we can't go there.
It's just not. And I've noticed that at his church, it's there's an air about it. There's a very, they might have valet for all that. There might be valet parking.
Yeah.
So it's, but To me, you're gonna get a lot further with me with humility,
Yes.
with feeding your congregation, and not so much feeding your ego and your and it's a lot of busy.
All right, subject change.
I like that's what very well said.
All right, Don, we asked everyone on the show, we've got about 10 minutes here. We asked everyone on the show, good discussion, everyone. First show in 12 years, pulling some of this stuff out of where, but it's good stuff. Don, what are two or three things you're optimistic about for 2025?
Since you recently discovered my credit card debt, then it is to pay that off this year.
All right, nothing like letting the global audience know about our business.
And then the second thing is empty nest, reconnect with you. It'll be nice to.
Yeah, he leaves tomorrow.
He keeps asking. He's like, "Where's dating Dawn?"
Ooh,
a lot of fun. Yeah,
you probably missed that person.
Well, and I'm like, well, because mom.
Yeah.
Kids always come first.
And my brother tells me all the time, because he has 4 kids, that there's just some things I'll never relate to. And we used to argue about certain topics, and he's like, "You never understand. You got to be a parent."
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, well, good. That's good stuff. Rob, next, what are you 2 or 3 things you're optimistic about?
I think I've kind of done a cleanse of my political watching the last 4 or 5 months. And what I think I'm optimistic about is we are going to take a little bit more responsibility for our outcomes than waiting on our leaders to give them to us. Like, unfortunately, because of these climates, we in losing a little bit of faith and substance in the people that we have in those positions, I think it's going to lead us to say, I have to take more responsibility about my outcomes of my life personally, but also the community around me. Right. So I think I see that happening a lot in the people, because you're turning off that distraction of what is the hot topic, and being more, for me at least, being more present in what I do have control over. So that's kind of where I've been talking to my therapist about. But other than that, for another show. What else am I optimistic about?
Well, some good stuff.
Yeah, I that's interesting. I think I'm optimistic about my children, of course. And 11 years of work is reaping benefits now in terms of how when you thought that these kids would never get it, I could sit back and hear my son and daughter regurgitate stuff I've been saying for the last 6 years. Right. And so I'm very optimistic in their futures, because I just think some of the exposure that they had to the world is going to make them better people. But at the same time, I'm also worried about that exposure to the world. So.
Yeah. Travis?
The past couple of years were a little bit difficult for us, my family, immediate family, me, Ashley, and Gracie. I think it kind of caught me off guard, because when to go way back, when the pandemic hit, and I'm a small business owner, when the first lockdowns came in, I braced for impact, because I started hearing these stories about everything closing up, and we're rolling up the sidewalks, and I wasn't sure what that meant for me. I was really terrified. But this weird thing happened where I actually got a couple of phone calls, and we grew, and so it was a weird thing that I didn't expect to happen. What I could not foresee, and what knocked us down, was the tell after everything reopened and everything, business as usual. But what happened was the repercussions of being locked down started to unfold. And so, without getting too personal, the past, when all this started, towards the end of 2023, I had a couple of very large contracts that just came and said, "Hey, we can't pay this out." And it really, so, we kept our head above water. This this past 4 months going into the new year, things have started to kind of level out. So I'm really excited to leave that in the past, move forward. And I think that we're geared up to do that. And then the last little thing that I'm kind of excited about, which is, it always goes back to our kids. But that's, everything revolves around your kids, right? Gracie took a hunting class at school.
Hey.
And so I've always been very close to my daughter, and I'm eternally grateful for that. But she comes to me after this first semester, and she goes, "Dad, I enjoyed that hunting class, and I was wondering if maybe I could duck hunt with you," which is my favorite thing in the world.
Oh.
So out of nowhere, I never expected it. And so now I have this whole year to plan on duck season towards the end of the year. And she merely needed to utter that, and I'm already at Academy looking at camouflage for
you're all over
junior shotguns, and so and it's not about the hunting, it's just about that one more thing that I have. This weird thing happened when she turned 11 and 12, where I felt like she's discovered boys and her body's changing, and all of a sudden she doesn't know who I am. And I wasn't sure how to find my way back in there. But the past year, she's kind of leveled out. She's become much more mature, and we're just right back there. But as an added bonus, she's like, "I'd like to go hunting with you." And so that kind of that was my Christmas present, really.
Wow.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, so I'm excited.
Pretty cool.
Nice.
I guess I should ask it on a positive note. I'm glad that Mason's going to college.
Yeah.
Because everybody said, "Oh, about your kids," and I'm like, "Oh, empty nest."
Yeah.
Yeah. So my stepson and our son's going to college. Got accepted into A&M. That was pretty big.
That is a big deal.
He graduated, and then he took a semester off. I don't know. They have a term for that now.
Gap
Semester.
Year or something like that.
Or this is ended up being, thank God, gap half year. And I do literally mean the Lord. Thank the Lord. Gap half year. Because, we were kids. You didn't have that gap year.
No.
It was either you went to
College
college
or
you
work.
got out of the house. Either way, you got out of the house.
Yeah.
Well, it turned into a gap decade.
Yeah.
It's just a permanent gap.
I am optimistic about, my faith. I feel closer to my faith, to God, than I have in years. And I'm optimistic about that. And I do feel, because we all have things to work on personally and internally. None of us are perfect. You don't read anything into it. I'm not Robert Morris, but we all struggle with things, and we need a little help. The other thing I'm optimistic about is, believe it or not, I'm choosing to be optimistic about this year, and the we didn't talk about politics. I'm going to, but every time there's a change in presidents, I always say I hope they succeed, whether I voted for them or not.
It only makes sense.
Because I remember years ago when President Obama was elected, and Rush Limbaugh said, now again, it's a bad example. He's to an audience, it's money, but he said, "I hope he fails." Well, I don't want to see whether I voted for a candidate or not. Because if they fail, we fail.
We fail. Yeah.
And I don't want to see any, again, whether I'm a fan or not, I want to see the federal government get their business taken care of.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to choose to be optimistic, to say, hey, maybe this will work out, and maybe things will be good. Because at the end of the day, whether you're a Democrat, or Republican, or independent, you just want safety and a good economy. That's kind of the two big things. You want to feel safe. And you want to have means, and you want your kids to feel safe, and your kids to have a way to make a living. I know it's so basic. And when we were kids, that's what politicians used to talk about. Not nobody talks about that anymore. But anyway, we got a couple of minutes here. I enjoyed the show. I think it was really
It was
good.
fun. I did too.
The last couple of minutes that I want to use to do this is, if you have health insurance, a lot of people, I'm health insurance nerd, but if you have health insurance, one of the provisions that was passed under what they call the Obamacare Act, like it or love it, there's one thing I love about it, is that if you have insurance, you get a free physical every year. Free. totally covered if you have health insurance. If you don't, it's fairly inexpensive. You can get them in urgent care centers. And on Christmas Day, one of my really good friends at 44 had a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great guy. And people have been very generous to help him and keep him in his prayers. His name is Sean. He's got a 8-year-old daughter and a wife. But the one thing it reminded me, and this is not the reason he had the stroke, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. This is not about him. I'm just keeping in prayer. But what it did to me is go, you know what? There's years when I skipped that yearly physical. And I want to know if there's something. So I'm telling everyone listening today, go do your yearly physical. Again, that's not directed towards Sean. Don't know that would have helped. It was a fluke thing. 44 had a stroke. But there are those listening today and that will listen to the replay that you may have, underlying health problems. And the physical can catch that, or at least they can see, hey, there's something, let's find the test. Go do your physical. If you're above 40, 45, go do your colonoscopy. It is literally a pain in the you-know-what. Take care of yourself in 2025. None of us want to do that. Go get your blood pressure checked. Go get your cholesterol checked. Go get, your heart rate checked. Do your colonoscopies. Do the things. That's my ending message tonight. It's January 6th. Schedule. End on the end. Schedule your physical.
End on the rear.
Take care of that. I don't know if any of you do your yearly physicals.
Every October.
But it's a good idea. You just never know.
Yeah, and if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for the people who depend on you. Do it for the people who care about you. Be an example. And I having lost my father rather early in my life, one of the things I had to do a lot of work with is forgiving him for not taking care of his health. And I had to subsequently I made it a standard of mine that I'm going to take care of myself. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make sure that I have a 90-year life or a 100-year life or whatever it may be. But it's what I don't want to put that on my children's brains. Let them deal with all the other stuff I'm going to teach them bad.
Right.
I don't want them to have that on their brains that I didn't give enough about my health, care enough about my health to be around for them as long as I can.
And you can have the procedures and the yearly physical, and it still can miss stuff and
all the time.
And it happens, but it's all about statistics. It increases your chances. Go take care of that. I mean, there's that report out there that says alcohol is like the third leading cause of cancer now.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's, I don't even know. That was one of the things I was going to bring up tonight, but we didn't get a chance. But anyway, so 2025 it's a good year to restart. It's always a good year to restart your health. All of us walk more, eat better, but go take care and do that physical. We are rounding down here. Any last words? Anything you want to say?
Thank you for letting me be part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, same for
Yeah.
me. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for introducing me to some pretty outstanding good people. And thanks. I hope to have some great conversation going forward.
Yeah.
When we
And
get into the
we'll
messy
do this
stuff.
again every Monday night from 6 to 7. You can watch the replay it's live on YouTube on the site, and then we'll post it on Facebook. You'll be able to watch the replay. We'll have those links active. But any big plans this week? You guys gonna watch some football?
I don't have any interest in any thing. I'm a sports dad, so my schedule is already deemed for me. I'll probably be in some local community center, paying $25 a head to watch my kid pay that I already paid for their season. I don't know how it works, but it cost me $150 this week to watch my son play basketball.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That you already paid $4,000 to.
Luckily he's good. Luckily he's good enough that either you're gonna play against him or you want him on your team. And so he's good. He's one of those kids.
That's good.
Yeah.
Texas playing Friday night college football.
Right here in Dallas.
Right here in Dallas. You going to the game?
I'm trying to.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying
Tickets
to.
are crazy.
Tickets are crazy. I've called in some favors. Nobody has responded to my text at this point. So who knows?
Yeah, that's
Tickets to anything are
It's insane.
Yeah.
Concert.
Now we all sound old.
Yeah.
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 My oldest son graduated from UT, and then now the youngest is going to A&M. So we really wanted to go to that UT A&M game,
Yeah.
right? First time in 13 years that they played, and there was no way. There was no way.
That's
The
hard.
tickets were like $1,500 a
Yeah,
seat.
yeah.
I'm like,
And I'm like, it's college.
I mean,
Duke
maybe-
plays SMU in basketball this year at SMU. $450 a seat
for Duke.
for Duke.
Ooh.
Cheap seats.
Yeah, right?
Last year, George Strait came through, and I thought it's like right around
Yeah.
our anniversary. I was like, man, that'd be cool. George, he's a legend. George Strait.
Mhm.
Just the nosebleeds were like $1,200.
We went.
We went, yeah.
I
To
just,
the A&M stadium.
yeah.
Yeah, we went. It was
But we
Oh,
one of
yeah.
his good friends is in the lot.
a lot. So
And
they
so-
got discounted
pre-sale.
tickets. Pre-sale.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And he got us 4
A hookup,
seats.
yeah.
Wow.
So we went with her. Yeah, we would have never bought them normally. What do we even
That's,
pay?
I mean, some of the tickets were $7,500 if you wanted to get down there.
Yeah.
We weren't down there. Okay.
We were down
It
there.
was perfect for us.
It was perfect for us. I mean, I'll be real. If it was a
It's
stunt
hot.
double, I would know.
We were that far
Couldn't
back.
I mean, they had the
Well,
big
I
screen.
saw-
No, he had that
I saw
swagger.
an interview, and Kid Rock said, you know, my commitment to my fans is that my tickets will never cost more than $75. And I'm not a beer drinker, but he said you'll never pay more than $5 for draft beer at my concerts. That is my. And I thought, well, maybe I'm a Kid Rock fan.
Is that true?
Maybe I'm
Is
a
that
Kid Rock. There's several artists that are really outspoken about ticket prices.
But you're also catching them at the YMCA.
Yeah.
You're not catching them at Allstate Arena.
He's blowing up beer with a gun on YouTube. He may not be the concert he used to be,
Yeah.
you know, but I do have a lot of respect for this. There's a few of them that are just like, man, my fans aren't going to pay $1,200.
No, they definitely shouldn't have to.
They shouldn't have to.
I
Right.
couldn't name 2 Kid Rock songs.
Well, for $75,
You know what? For $75, I'd probably go. I'd go to any like major artist.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's my point.
because you know what's fun? I've been to like country concerts. I didn't know any of the songs, but you're fun.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a
Because
good
people
vibe.
are singing and the
It's a good
vibe's
vibe.
good.
Well,
Yeah.
some of the shows that any of these people put on now, it's just it's not even a concert, it's like a show.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a big
Carrie
production.
Underwood, we saw in Vegas.
Yeah. She reminds
I
me of
went
Dolly
to-
Parton. She had
Well,
like 15.
Carrie Underwood for a lot of reasons. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know the song. I don't know the songs, but yeah, it was.
It looked good.
I went to see a few years ago. I went to see this group called the Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know who that is?
Yes.
I went to see them in where the Mavs play, right up here,
Mhm.
American Airlines Center.
Yep.
Man, I had no idea. A friend of mine had a ticket. She invited me, so I went. First couple of songs, this woman comes up from underground on this big scissor lift, and she's playing the violin,
Mhm.
and they made snow. The entire concert, they made snow. I was like, this.
I took my kids when they were
This is
little,
amazing.
and they still remember it.
We all
yeah.
sound old.
Yeah.
Well, we're
Wow.
coming to the end of our show here, and again, thank you very much, and we'll do this every Monday night right here.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Great.
thank you, everyone. Thanks for
Thanks for having
episode.
me.
Thanks for
See you
listening
soon.
to Mauck Talk.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I brought my son. Daddy be on the podcast. He's like, no. He brought his laptop, his phone.
Oh, he's here?
He's here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he is here?
But he's also